Then what happened? وَقَالَ, and he said, who said? الَّذِي اشْتَرَاهُ, the person who bought him. It is said that this caravan was on its way from Madian to Egypt. It was on its way from where? From Madian to Egypt. And as they passed by Canaan, where Yusuf a.s. used to live, they passed by that well and they found Yusuf a.s. And when they reached Egypt, what did they do? They sold him. So when they sold him as a slave, the person who bought him min Misra, in Egypt, from Egypt. So what do we learn? That where was he sold? In Egypt. Now imagine, all the way from Palestine, from Canaan, near Jerusalem, he is taken where? All the way to Egypt. And he's taken over there and he's sold as a slave. And this person who bought him, who was he? It is said that he was the finance minister of the Egyptian ruler. Again, this was not a coincidence. What was it? It was a part of the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To save Yusuf alayhi salam. To teach Yusuf alayhi salam. When he was picked up by the caravan, when the caravan happened to pass by, this was not a coincidence. It was a part of the plan. Similarly, this person who bought him, this was also not a coincidence. It was part of the plan. So this person was the finance minister of the Egyptian ruler. He was a caretaker of the treasury at that time. And his title was Aziz. What was his title? Aziz. Ayn za ya za. So this person who bought Yusuf a.s., the Aziz, min Misra, from Egypt, he said, limra'atihi, to his wife. Who was his wife? It is said that her name was either Ra'il, Ra, Alif, Ayn, Ya, Lam, or her name was Zulaykha. So he said to his wife, Akrimi maswahu, make his residence good. Provide him a very good accommodation. Akrimi maswahu. The word akrimi is from the root letters Kaf Ra Mim, from the word ikram. And ikram is to honor someone. What does ikram mean? To honor someone, to respect someone. And remember that karam is also used for generosity. So ikram is to show generosity to someone. And maswa is from the root letters sa, waw, ya, and it literally means to live at a place for a very long time. And from this, the word maswa is a place of residence, a place of stay. And the word does not just apply to the place, meaning the room or the house that a person is living in, but it applies to the entire experience. The food that he eats over there, the work that he does over there, the things that he does, the clothes that he wears. It's an entire experience. Just as when a guest comes to your house and he stays at your house, are you only concerned about the bed that they're going to sleep in? No. You're concerned about where they're going to sleep, what they're going to eat, where you're going to take them, how you're going to keep them busy, how you're going to engage them. You think about different things. So, akrimi maswahu, his entire time of stay, make it very honorable. Make his residence good. Be very generous towards him while he's staying with us. Why is it that the Aziz, he said these words to his wife? Akrimi maswahu. Why did he say this? Because he saw the potential in Yusuf a.s. The people of the caravan, they didn't see that potential. But this man who bought him, he saw that potential. He saw that this child was not ordinary. And it's obvious when you deal with a person, when you speak to them, you can figure out what kind of a person they are. The way that they behave, the way they speak, the way that they look, the way they eat, the way they walk, you can tell. So similarly, this man, when he observed Yusuf a.s., he knew that there was something special about him. And he noticed that. And when he noticed that, he did not ignore it. He told his wife, be generous towards him. Make his stay good. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said that 3 people had most insight. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said that 3 people, they had most insight. First of all, he said, that the first person who had most insight was the Aziz of Egypt. Meaning this person who bought Yusuf alayhi salam, because he saw Yusuf alayhi salam and he recognized the potential within him. And he said to his wife, Akrimi maswahu. The second person who had a lot of insight was the daughter of Shu'aib, the woman who said to her father that, Ya abat istajirhu. The woman who said to his father that, oh my father, hire him. Hire who? Musa alayhi salam. Because when she dealt with Musa alayhi salam, when Musa alayhi salam watered their flock for them, she recognized the potential in him and she told her father, hire him. Hire him. And thirdly, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu. He also had a lot of insight. How? When he appointed Umar ibn al-Khattab to be the Khalifa after him. He saw the potential in Umar radhiyallahu anhu. That woman, she saw the potential in Musa alayhi salam. And this man, the Aziz of Misr, he saw the potential in who? In Yusuf alayhi salam. So he says to his wife, Akrimi maswahu. Why? Because asa, it is possible, and yanfa'ana, that he will benefit us. Yanfa'a, from the root letters, noon fa'in, naf'un. And naf'r is benefit. So it's possible that he will benefit us. How? That if we do intend to sell him again, he will go for a very good price, because we have treated him well, because we have taught him, because we have been very good to him. Because just imagine, at that time, people were bought and sold just like animals. Just like animals. Like for example, if you buy a goat or a sheep or a cow, if you treat it well, if you feed it well, you can sell it for a good price. Similarly, if a person has a pet, for example a dog or a cat, and he keeps it well, eventually when he tries to sell it, it will go for a good price. Similarly, if a person has a phone, a car, and he keeps it in a very good condition, if he intends to sell it again, it will bring him a good price. And if he does not take care of it, if there is a bump on one side, a dent on the other, a scratch on the other side, then is the price going to be good? No. So akrimi maswahu, because it's possible that he will bring us a lot of profit when we intend to sell him again. Or secondly, this has been understood as that treat him well, because tomorrow he will benefit us in our work. Treat him well, because tomorrow he will prove beneficial for us. If we honor him today, if we take him into confidence, if we treat him well, if we educate him, if we teach him, then tomorrow he will prove very beneficial for us. And this is something that can only be done when a person looks beyond the obvious. If you look at it, this person, he did not take Yusuf alayhi salam at face value. That okay, he's a slave, he should be wearing rags, and he should be working all day and all night. He should be given old food. He should not be treated that well, because after all, he's a slave. But what does he say? No. Treat him well, educate him, teach him, because tomorrow he will prove beneficial for us. And if we look at it, many times it happens with people, that those who are under them, they don't treat them that well. And because they don't treat them that well, they cannot benefit from them as much. They cannot benefit from them as much. Recently someone was telling me about a family who had taken the servants who worked for them, they basically sent all of their children to school. The servants who worked for them, they sent their children to school, in ordinary schools, public schools. And when they sent them, they made sure that they were doing well in their studies. And the youngest of them, he applied for university. And when he applied, he got full scholarship. And from a third world country, he came to the US, did his degree, went back, now works for a very big company and makes millions of Pakistani rupees. So you can just imagine, if you do good to someone, you don't know how much benefit you can bring to them, and how much benefit as a result they could bring to you. So the Aziz Misr, he doesn't say, okay, he's a slave, just keep him as a slave, give him rags to wear, old clothes to wear, give him old food to eat. No, he sees the potential in that child and he says, treat him well, because he will prove beneficial for us. And if not that, or نَتَّخِذَهُ, we can adopt him, وَلَدًا, as a child. At least we can keep him as our child. It is said that the Aziz, he did not have any children of his own. He did not have any children of his own. And naturally, a person who does not have children of his own, he wants to have children. So, he said, maybe we can adopt him as a child. What does Allah say? وَكَذَلِكَ, and thus, مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, we established Yusuf a.s. in the land. Which land? The land of Egypt. The word makkanna is from the root letters mim, kaf, nun. And tamkeen is to establish someone. It is to establish someone firmly. Basically, it is from the word makan. And what does makan mean? Place, house. And it's also said that it's from the word makana, which is to be strong. So tamkeen is to give strength to someone in a place. It is to establish them firmly over there. So we established Yusuf a.s. in the land. Which land? The land of Egypt. How? That first of all, he went to the house of the Aziz. And secondly, he was treated very well over there. And why was this so? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him out of Canaan and brought him all the way to Egypt through such a difficult experience. He was sold into slavery and then he's put as a slave in someone's house. Why? وَلِنُعَلِّمَهُ, and so that we can teach him مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ, from the interpretation of sayings, of dreams. Because he could not have gained this knowledge in the home of his father, back in Canaan. He could only have learned this by gaining experience. Remember the meaning of ta'wilul ahadith? Ahadith is a plural of hadith. And ahadith has been understood in several ways. And one of the ways that it has been understood is that ahadith is the events that happen, that occur, the incidents that occur, or similarly the statements that are said. And ta'wil of them means that a person understands them. He understands their reality. When a person has insight. And this skill, this ability, can only be developed through experience. This ability can only be developed how? Through experience. And this experience he could not have gained at home. So we brought him out of Canaan to Egypt so that he could gain this knowledge. Secondly, a hadith has been understood as the knowledge of the meanings of the scriptures. The understanding of the scripture. If you look at it, the book of Allah, the scripture, you cannot truly understand it. You cannot apply it. You cannot relate with it unless and until you gain experience, you gain life experiences. For example, a person learns, okay, sabr is to control yourself. He memorizes that definition. But when will he be able to truly understand it? When he experiences it himself. Similarly, in the Quran we learn about the sun, about the moon, about the stars, about the rain, about the plants, etc. And one is that you just learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but you can only understand it, you can only benefit from it, you can only relate with it when you see it, when you study it. So, the only way of truly understanding the book of Allah is when you gain experience, when you gain life experience. And again, this life experience cannot be gained when a person is sitting at home. He has to come out of there. Knowledge, theory, it can be learned from books. But insight can only be learned through experiences. And a person becomes well-rounded through experience. When a person gets to travel, when a person interacts with various people, when a person sees many things happening, when he goes through hardship in life. A person cannot acquire this in the shelter of his house. He has to get out. Which is why we see that the muhaddithin, the people who collected ahadith, who narrated ahadith, they would prefer to collect ahadith from those who had traveled a lot, those who had learned from many different teachers. Because when you get out of your hometown, and when you travel, when you see different people, your horizon, it expands. You look at things differently. You're not that narrow-minded. You're not biased anymore. You become more open-minded. So this knowledge he could not have learned at home This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him out of Canaan to Egypt so that he could learn this knowledge. Wallahu, and Allah, ghalibun, He is one who is powerful, ala amrihi, over His matter, over His command. Ghalib is from the root letters, ghain lam ba, from the word ghalba. And what does ghalba mean? Dominance, victory. So Allah is victorious over His affair. Meaning, anything that Allah wishes to execute, any plan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to execute, He does it. No one can stop Him. Anything that He wills, anything that He commands, nothing at all can stop. Wallahu ghalibun ala amrihi. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most of the people do not know. It has also been said that وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ. Amrihi means His matter. Whose matter? The matter of Yusuf a.s. The matter of Yusuf a.s. So many people tried to harm Yusuf a.s., but they were not able to. If you look at it, the brothers, they threw him into the well, trying to get rid of him so that he would be finished. But the caravan came and picked him up. The people of the caravan, what did they do? They sold him as a slave so that he would live his life as a slave. But did he live his life as a slave? No, he was brought in the house of a very successful person. Someone who was financially very strong. He had a good position in the government as well. And that person did not treat him as a slave. How did he treat him? Just like his own son. So we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the one who had most authority with regards to the matter of Yusuf a.s. But most of the people do not know. What do they not know? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ghalib. There are many, many lessons that can be learned from this ayah. First of all, we learn about the importance of being generous to those people who stay with you. For those people who work for you, whether they are servants, or they are employees, or they are your younger siblings who are working for you, or it could be a person who is coming and staying with you as a guest. Any person who stays with you, any person who stays in your company, who is doing some work with you, it is your duty that you should be generous towards them. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions these words of Aziz. Why? Because He's praising. He likes the fact that the Aziz said this. He likes his behavior. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appreciating it over here. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyukrim ضيفه. The one who believes in Allah and the last day, then what should he do? He should be generous and he should honor who? His guest. He should be generous towards his guest and he should give honor to him. He should treat him well. And this we can apply to everything. Any person who is staying with us, whether it is for 2-3 hours, or it is in the classroom, or it is in the workspace, or it is in the bus, anywhere that we are and people are with us, it is our duty that we should be generous towards them. Secondly, we also see in this ayah that each and every person has potential. And what do we need to do? We need to look beyond the obvious and find the potential in them and avail that. Because sometimes what happens? We just get stuck that, okay, this person is very different from me. I cannot get along with him. Forget about it. And we think the solution is in cutting off from them. Isn't it so? This man, he did not think, he is a slave. Treat him as a slave. What does he say? Treat him well. Because we should look beyond the obvious, beyond the surface, and see what benefit can we extract from the person. How can we benefit them? How can we benefit them? Sometimes we just think, this person, I cannot get along with them, I cannot work with them, I cannot deal with them. Every time I speak to them, I end up in an argument. Therefore, I've decided I'm not going to speak with them anymore, I'm not going to work with them anymore. But is that the solution? No. We need to learn difference management. That despite differences, we can work with people. Because only when we do that, then we can bring benefit to ourselves and we can benefit to others as well. Thirdly, we also learn from this ayah that when a person does good to the other, in fact, who is he doing good to? Himself. Because he says, أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَاهُ عَسَىٰ أَن يَنْفَعْنَا. Be generous towards him, probably, perhaps, he will benefit us. So when a person does good to the other, in reality, who is he benefiting? Himself. And we should not become selfish when we benefit others. Because sometimes the only reason as to why we benefit others is so that we can get some benefit out of them. For example, we will smile at someone, we will talk to someone only when we think that they can benefit us. What should be our goal? That if we're good to them, we're benefiting ourselves. How? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us. If we smile at someone, we're following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes it. Then we also learn from this ayah about the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala behind the difficulties that He sends a person's way. And this is a very important thing. The wisdom behind the difficulties that come in a person's life. If you look at it, Yusuf alayhi salam, he was brought out of his house. He was taken away from his home. Why? So that he could be given knowledge. So that he could be taught wisdom. Because only when you go through difficulty, then you can become better. Why was he taken out of his house? Could he not have gained this knowledge, this experience in his house as well? No. Why? Because, first of all, if he was at home, the jealousy of his brothers, it would not let him live peacefully. And when a person is not living in peace, then what happens? His learning, his abilities, they are negatively affected. He is not able to benefit as much. Like for example, if a person is in a situation where people are always fighting with him, people are always arguing with him, people are always attacking him, can he think? Can he think properly? Can he think peacefully? Can he memorize? No, he cannot. So if he was at home, the jealousy of his brothers would have really impaired his learning. Because when people are constantly attacking you, when people are always ganging up against you, then it makes you feel constricted. It makes you feel limited. It distracts you from your focus. And you cannot focus on things that are important. It really impairs your learning. Secondly, we see that he was brought out of his home because Canaan was still a village. It was not as developed compared to Egypt. It was not as developed compared to Egypt. Egypt was very advanced. As you can see, that there was a finance minister. Just imagine, so many thousands of years ago, if in a place, in a country, there's a finance minister, you can imagine how organized, how advanced those people must have been. So this experience he could not have gained at home. He could have only gained this experience when he came out of his house. When he came out of Canaan, out of the village, to a country that was civilized, that was developed, that was very advanced. If you look at it, the father of Yusuf a.s., he loved him. But despite that love, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him out of there so that he could gain this experience. So that he could learn wisdom. He could learn knowledge. Also we learn from this ayah that in order to gain wisdom, in order to learn, a person needs to go through hardships in life. A person must go through thick and thin. A person must bear difficulties. Because without these difficulties, a person cannot learn. Without difficulties, a person cannot learn. We also learn from this ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ghalib. He is victorious over His affairs. When He decrees something, no one can cause failure to His plan. No one at all can cause failure. His brothers were envious. They could not harm him. The people of the caravan, they sold him as a slave. Even they could not harm him. So what does this teach us? That no one can harm us unless Allah allows. And no one can benefit us unless Allah allows. Because Allah is ghalib. And we also learn a very important lesson from this ayah that most people, they do not know the wisdom behind the difficulties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends a person's way. What happens when a person undergoes some difficulty? He feels that it is injustice, that it is unfair. And he is very unfortunate. And he becomes sad, he becomes depressed. But we see that Yusuf a.s. was made to go through all of this difficulty so that he could learn. So that he could learn. There is a wisdom behind every difficulty. Difficulties, they come our way to teach us. Because you cannot gain knowledge or experience with relaxation. Just imagine if you're sitting on a sofa and you're trying to memorize your lesson. Will you be able to memorize? No. Perhaps in 15 minutes you'll be sleeping. Whereas if you sit on a desk and a chair, you're sitting in perhaps a very uncomfortable position, but you will be able to study longer. So only when you go through difficulty, then you can learn. But many people, they're unaware of the wisdom behind the difficulties that come their way. If you look at it, many children, what happens to them? They become orphaned at a very young age. They lose their parents. Similarly, young parents, what happens to them? They lose their children. They lose their first child. Similarly, a young woman, she gets divorced. It's possible. Or a woman, a girl, she does not get married. Year after year, she's not getting married. Or when she's married, she does not have children. When these difficulties come our way, what do we think? That we are very unfortunate. That this is injustice and this is not fair. But the fact is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to teach us something through that experience. Yusuf a.s. was taken out of his house. The most beloved child of his father becomes a slave in someone's house. Can you imagine? Just imagine, a child who is very beloved to his father, he becomes a slave in someone's house. What a drastic change. Within days, his life is turned completely upside down, completely changed. But this was necessary, because if he did not go through this experience, he would not have gained all that knowledge and experience. He would not have. So any difficulty that comes a person's way, there is always some reason behind it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to teach us something. So what's the lesson in this for us? That when we go through some difficulty, we should take it positively. We should not take it negatively. We should not think that we are very unfortunate. We should think rather that what does my Lord want me to learn from this? What does He want me to do instead? What does He want me to do instead? And when a person accepts the difficulty, only then he is able to do something in his life. You may have seen people who, for example, if a woman loses her child, or if a woman gets divorced, and she just takes that as a big stain on herself, and she does not get over it, what happens to her? She cannot move on. People cannot move on because they don't overcome the difficulties that come their way. But once they overcome them, then they move on and they excel. They excel. Many times it happens with people. For example, if there's a young woman, she's not getting married. One is that she stops everything. She sits at home thinking, I should stay at home and hope that somebody is going to send a proposal to me. That someday I'm going to get married. And she spends years and years, one year after the other, sitting at home doing nothing, not even studying, not working, not benefiting people. Allah knows whether she's eventually going to get married or not. But if she takes that as something very important for her, that maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do something instead. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do something else that is more important at this point in my life. If she looks at the problem this way, she can excel. And if she does not look at it this way, then what's going to happen to her? She's going to waste 1 year after the other year. Many times it happens with people that when they want something very badly in life and they're not getting it, instead of focusing on other things, they get stuck over there. They don't move on. And this rusts their abilities. It deteriorates their abilities. So we need to take the problems positively and think, what does my Lord want me to do instead? What can I do? If I'm not being given this, what I really want, then what is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do? I should spend my life doing that. I should spend my time doing that, instead of just passing my time and wasting it. So we see that Yusuf a.s., he does not get depressed over here. He does not say to the people, you don't know who I am. I had that dream. I'm supposed to be very successful in life. And I ended up over here only because of the jealousy of my brothers. Nothing like that. he takes it very positively.